Först nu i augusti som vi fick möjlighet att ansluta oss till Qt. Och vad är Qt? Ja, till att börja med så uttalar man vårt namn så här, Qt. Det är alltså inte Katti och det är definitivt inte Cutie. Och det är många som frågar det. Och vad gör vi för någonting? Ja, vi erbjuder psykometriska lösningar, e-baserade och olika konsulttjänster inom rekrytering och urval. Vi tycker om att tänka på vår portfölj som en ny generation med psykologiska test. Vi kommer komma in lite mer på det sedan. Och vi testar ungefär 3 miljoner i 70 länder på 30 språk idag. Och vi som jobbar på Qt, vi är framförallt psykologer, men vi är också programmerare, vi är ekonomer och skribenter. Och vi som jobbar på Qt, vi tror på psykologi, teknik och utveckling. För mig och Jakob när vi började på Qt så var det lite som kallas chokladfabrik, sådär att kliva in. Så äntligen kunde man bygga ett testsystem som fungerade precis så som man hade fantiserat om. För grejen med Qt är att det bolaget startades 2002 när internet redan var ett faktum så att säga. Så alla system och alla test är byggda på ett sätt där man har tagit vara den här tekniken. Då istället för att ta befintliga papper och penna test så att säga och webbifiera dem. Psykologi, teknik och utveckling, det är komponenter som vi tar med oss när vi hjälper er eller våra kunder att utveckla verksamheten, göra den mer effektiv och lönsam. Vi tror också att de här komponenterna går att användas på andra sätt också. Jag skulle gärna delge er lite kring vårt CSR-projekt som vi har också. En man som heter Dr. Mukwege som är en Nobelpriskandidat är läkare i östra Kongo och arbetar med att förbättra situationen framförallt för krigsdrabbade kvinnor. Och vi är med i ett projekt tillsammans med Stockholms universitet, Dr. Mukwege och stiftelsen Hela Progress som handlar om att utbilda så kallade barfota psykologer, det vill säga sjukvårdspersonal i otillgängliga trakter i manualbaserad terapi för posttraumatisk stresssyndrom. Och de här barfotapsykologerna, de har sin manual och de blir handledda och coachade då via smartphones. Så vår del i det här är dels att vi bidrar med en del finansiering men också med att översätta psykiatriska skattningsskalet till franska och vi upplåter vår plattform till det här. Och om ni är intresserade av CSR-projekt, jag kan tänka mig att många av er har både engagemanget och know-how för att bidra med olika typer av projekt, så får ni gärna prata med Stina Berger från Hela Progress som sitter här som är projektledare och distributör av den här typen av CSR-projekt. För att närma oss dagens tema så fick ni fylla i en quick poll innan ni kom hit idag. Och nästan alla fyllde i. Det tackar vi för. Den första frågan här var, brukar du kolla upp kandidater i dina rekryteringsprocesser på Facebook? Ja, regelmässigt. Ja, ibland. Någon enstaka gång. Nej, aldrig är det bara då 34% som svarar. Och när det gäller googla kandidater, då är det bara 15% av er som svarar att ni aldrig googlar kandidater. Då. Vilket gör det lite intressant och flytta över till den sista frågan då. Som var, tänker du själv på hur du framställer dig på Facebook? Det var bara 42,4% som var noga med att göra ett professionellt intryck på Facebook. Så kan vi kanske lite dra slutsatsen här att vi googlar alla varandra, tittar på varandra på Facebook. Men vi bryr oss inte så jättemycket om själva hur vi framstår där. Möjligtvis så kommer den siffran att stiga lite efter det här seminariet som ni ska få höra nu. Eller vad tror du om det, Jakob?
Ja, det kan nog stämma.
Ja. Vill du ta över den här?
Yes.
Ska vi se. Den här ska du.
Bra. Jag tänkte bara lite kort presentera mig själv då. I'll switch over to English now. So, we're happy to introduce Michal Kosinski and welcome him here to Stockholm. So, during the last few weeks, I know that Michal has been working out of China and that the next trip will be to Brazil. So, we're glad to be able to offer him some jet lag relief with a pit stop here in Stockholm. So Michal works as a director at the Psychometric Center at Cambridge University, which is one of the most prominent institutions in the field of psychological research today. His main research focus is the intersection of internet and psychology. And his work is funded by the Boeing company, the airline company, in order to further understand the role of social media in the corporate environments. He has published scientific articles concerning subjects as personality and patterns of Facebook usage, personality and website choice, or can well-being be measured using Facebook status updates? That's an interesting one. So Michal's office is in the same building complex where Watson and Crick discovered DNA some 50 years ago. And we don't know yet if Michael's work on psychology and internet is going to be as revolutionary as the discovery of DNA. It might be, who knows. But that there's something important happening here on this front, which will most probably have a profound impact on how we work with psychological assessment and recruitment. This I think we can all agree upon. So it's a great pleasure to have you here, Michal, and I'll leave over to you now.
Thank you. Thanks. Oh, actually, I have the other one. I did it. Sorry. I hope you survived that. So good morning, everyone. Oh, that was nice. It never happens in other countries. It's super nice. So can you guys hear me there at the back? I'm not using a microphone. This is just a fake one. So I hope you can hear me there. Let's check if my presentation works. When I was first invited here, I was told that this is a breakfast seminar, and I imagined that it's more like 15 people sitting around the table and eating breakfast. So I'm very surprised, very positively surprised that you guys eat breakfast in such a huge groups. Okay. And I was invited here today to speak about the future of the job markets, or of the job market, because the job market is becoming much more global, and maybe one day we'll have to stop speaking about job markets and start speaking about job markets. But then let me start with the introduction to the other market that has recently changed a lot, and this is a retail market. And I give you one example here of the technology that seriously affected retail market, but of course this is just one of many. Think about Alibaba.com, think about Amazon, think about all the other information age markets that completely change the face of retail. So in the past, retail market was very much face-to-face business. You were buying stuff locally because you knew where to buy stuff from in your vicinity. You had a very limited access to information about the prices. You didn't know how much the same things cost in the other places. You couldn't trust people that were living far away from you, simply because if something bad happened, then well, it was a problem to kind of get the thing repaired or replaced. Moreover, it was very difficult in the past to check the reputation of the people that were living far away from you. Moreover, this limited information age was also affecting the prices you had to pay. Very often retail chains were usually very, very long, and you had to pay a huge premium when you were buying stuff. You couldn't compare the prices between different sellers simply because you could only buy locally. And then the information age, the information technologies and platforms like eBay seriously changed this pattern. So nowadays you can access the information about the offered products or offered services from all around the world. Moreover, you are free to buy this stuff and those services from all around the world, and this has become possible because and thanks to reputation mechanisms. Now you can trust perfect strangers simply because thousands of other people trusted them and thousands of other people said, this guy is a reliable person. It changes the rules of the game tremendously. Retail chain shortened a lot. Many people lost their jobs, but the economy at large got much more efficient, and you can buy things for much lower price. Moreover, I think that actually the reputation mechanism that is present on platforms like eBay is as good as the reputation mechanism that we had in a very far past, in the beginnings of trade and retail, where people were selling and buying stuff locally in their own village, the village that had 150 people, maybe 100. You knew everyone. If someone misbehaved, if someone behaved in an unreliable fashion, everyone in his social circle, every customer of his would immediately know it. So basically, you couldn't behave in an unreliable way. If you think about Tesco's or any other big store, and no offense, I don't pick up Tesco's because I love Tesco's, I buy at Tesco's. But then if they mistreat one customer, it doesn't really matter for them so much. They lose this one customer, but at large, the business is not affected. If you think about markets like eBay, if you are a retailer here and you mistreat one customer, you will get a negative comment. And we all know that if you got a negative comment on eBay or a negative comment on Amazon or on the similar markets, your business is severely affected. It's why those retailers that fight for each customer and make sure that they are happy. And they go really a long way. Not sure if you ever actually had a dispute with the seller on eBay, but they really go a long way to make sure that you are happy. And why am I talking about it? I'm talking about it because I think that the job market very soon will become very much like retail market. It's not yet there. Job market is much more complicated. Buying someone's time or selling your own time when you work for someone is more complicated than buying and selling cameras or computers or laptops. But the same technologies and the same paradigms are at work when it comes to job market. First of all, we have a global access to information, both about potential employees and potential employers. Second of all, we have nascent reputation mechanisms, and I will talk a bit more about it in the future. And finally, because you have a global access to information, you can compare how much you could get in other jobs with how much we're getting at the moment. The price of work is also getting optimized. This exchange is also finding its equilibrium. What the effect will be of those changes? Well, I think it will be profound, but let me show you this a bit later. So I just wanted to show you two examples of the technologies that are enabling global access to information. So I guess all of you guys know Monster, and probably most of you know LinkedIn as well. This provides both employers and employees with a very nice and unparalleled in the past access to information about available jobs. LinkedIn actually is also venturing into reputation business. I'm sure you've heard about endorsements on LinkedIn. You can basically ask your ex-employers to give you an endorsement, which can tremendously help in the recruitment process, where you can compare the list of actual positions of the individual and then see whether each of the bosses gave a positive endorsement. But there are other markets, other job markets, that are even more similar to what's happening on the retail market. Amazon Mechanical Turk is one very good example. This is an example of a crowdsourcing platform. So here the jobs are very, very small. Usually they would take, you hire people for 60 seconds, maybe for 5 minutes. The salaries are also very low. You pay anything between 1 cent for those 60 seconds and few dollars. But the system works very much like eBay. You have so-called requesters, those are the guys here, and who can put up tasks on Mechanical Turk and request solutions. And you have workers, they're actually called workers, I guess it's written somewhere here, that can accept those tasks and solve the problems for the offered price. And let me show you how it looks inside. So when you are a worker, you basically will see a list of 287,000 potential little jobs that you can take. And this is an example of 2 of those jobs. You can color tag images for search and compare 2 images. This system originated at Amazon, and it was originally used to solve the problems that were difficult to solve using machine learning approaches. So they treated this as a kind of a human computer, a human processor. It's why they call those little tasks human intelligence tasks. And they used it in the beginning in Amazon to label pictures, but they very quickly realized that it's not only them who has this problem, that there are some tasks that are very difficult to be solved by the computer, where humans can kind of come and help. And now this platform is public, and everyone can use it. And it's not only simple tasks like that. It's also translating pieces of text, writing short press articles, and so on. So those guys, they were not HR specialists. They do not come from LinkedIn or HR universe. They are software engineers. And they, in a way, by accident, created a job market of the future, I would say. So I want to convince you today that in a few years, the entire job market would look like that. Price optimization mechanism here also works very nice. So you don't really have an auction, so you cannot kind of beat prices. But because you have so many tasks on the system, you have to offer the price that is attractive to workers. Otherwise, they will not take your task. It's very similar to eBay. In the beginning, they had to offer auctions. So when you were selling something, you're saying, OK, let's kind of auction, let's bid who will pay more. But nowadays, actually, auctions are very unpopular on eBay. Why? Because the whole eBay become one huge auction. So basically, because people are selling the same things, if you want to post your offer, you have to look at how much the given thing goes and offer the same or slightly lower price. So we can kind of have a huge ongoing auction price optimization mechanism. The same happens here. Also, you have a reputation mechanism. Once I accepted this hit and I returned the solution, afterwards, the requester, the person that asked me to do the job, can say whether I performed well or not. And then, of course, if few people would say that you didn't perform well, no one will want to hire in the future, right? They will say, I don't want people who have acceptance rate below 97%. And then, of course, the additional advantage of markets like that, because the interaction, the job is very short, and usually it's actually also very cheap. You can request multiple solutions to each of the tasks. And then the question, of course, is how reliable a platform like that can be. And again, I'm going here only to show you that if this technology flies, and if we observe that the job markets at large are moving in this direction, the question is whether this actually will work, whether we can trust perfect strangers. Requested, they never see the workers. And very often then they ask them for the solutions that would affect the business. They ask them to label images that later are used to show to the customers. If those anonymous workers coming from all around the world make a mistake, the company loses face. And the company only pays 1 cent for the solution, right? So on the surface, it looks like this system shouldn't be very reliable. And we wanted to test it, and we also wanted to check whether this system can solve and advance cognitive problems. So what we did, we asked the system to solve an IQ test. And I will not go here into the details. There's actually 3 or 4 papers, some of them published, some of them coming up, describing how well Mechanical Turk performed, and also giving some details about and advice how to configure Mechanical Turk to get the best out of it. But what you can see here, you can see a comparison of an IQ score of Mechanical Turk platform, and you can see here just the people in the lab. So people you can hire in traditional way. Why those both lines go up? Because we're aggregating the scores. So we said we're interested in kind of a crowd solution to the IQ test, right? So we, instead of just taking one solution to the IQ test, then we took the other solution and so on, and tried to figure out what's the final solution for the IQ test of the entire crowd. So it's not on the individual level. Though actually it's on the individual level here, when we have only one worker or one person solving an IQ test. So of course, if you have one person solving an IQ test, IQ is around 100. This is the definition of IQ. But surprise, if you ask a crowd of people who are being being paid 1 cent for the solution, if you ask them to provide you with a solution to IQ test, the average IQ would be 115. Maybe only intelligent people go on crowdsourcing platforms. No, those people are actually, the distribution of IQ is perfectly normal. It is just that the rules that are on this eBay style job market are completely different. People are self-selected for the job, right? I'm not forcing you like I was forcing, in a way, those guys take an IQ test. They had a choice to take it or not to take it. Moreover, there is a reputation system. Those people, if they get the answer wrong, they would just get the feedback that maybe is not as good as it could be. Those guys, if they get the question wrong, if they get the answer wrong, they will be severely punished. They will lose their reputation. Well, we actually never hurt a Mechanical Turk worker, but we're telling them that if they will give us a wrong answer, we'll hurt them. You can see, if you take actually 20 solutions, the IQ flies very, very high. This is the level of that can be achieved by less than 1% of people in a population. Also, you can see that you don't really have to pay much. I'll skim it quickly through, but you can see that the maximum performance, here the blue bar shows the average IQ is at 5 cents per solution, so it's not much. And actually, by paying more, you are affecting performance, which actually works on the traditional job markets as well. Sometimes you can kill a very good employee by overpaying him or her. And finally, we looked at the comparison between intelligence of the crowd and intelligence of the smartest individual. And you can also see that the crowd is always smarter than the smartest individual. But then some people would say, okay, those new kinds of approaches, those new information kind of approaches, crowdsourcing technologies, they are good only for simple tasks when you do not have to create anything creative or large. But I would disagree. I would say, look at Wikipedia. Wikipedia is an example of job market of the future. It's just that the salaries are very low because salaries are close to zero. But look, they kind of adjusted themselves to this level. No one forces those people to work, and they do really work for close to nothing. And of course, they also have a reputation system here, like on Mechanical Turk. You start as an anonymous contributor. Everyone can revert your changes. Then if you made many good contributions, the system will start trusting you. And then you're actually gaining some extra powers, some administrator powers. You can revert changes made by other people. And I specifically chose the subject of Palestinian territories because it's very difficult to find a kind of a golden solution to write an article like that. There's a lot of politics behind it, a lot of agendas and so on. It will be very difficult to create an encyclopedia entry of this kind. And the crowd of anonymous people with a properly designed reputation system can do it very successfully. And it's doing it continuously because you can see here, it's a print screen taken 2 days ago or 3 days ago. Every day you will have something happening here. People keep working on this job market here. Okay, so let me now tell you well, elaborate on why I believe this is a tremendous change for how we should be thinking about job markets. So first of all, job market of the future, the job market that is an eBay-style job market, will allow for shorter engagements. Today, when you hire people, you hire them usually for relatively long time, for months at least. Why? Because it's expensive to hire people, right? Why is it expensive to hire people? Because you don't know much about them. You have to go through thousands of applications. You have to test those guys. And also, you have to ascertain that they are reliable. And very often, you're wrong. Very often, you think the guy is reliable and he's matched for job, but he's not. It's the same on the other side of the game. You guys are recruiters, I assume, most of you, or HR specialists. But people who are applying for jobs, they also have to spend a lot of time. They have a tremendous investment, putting tremendous investment into looking for jobs. They have to apply. My friends who are finishing Cambridge University, they have to apply to 150 places to find a job. It's an enormous amount of work. It takes them months to go through it. It's why once they actually finally started the relationship with one company, they will stay there. And for many reasons, it is really, really bad that they stay there. And some of those reasons are very easily explainable. So for instance, when you think about jobs, some of the things we do at work we like, some other things we would prefer someone else to deal with them. But because we're already hired, we don't really have a choice. We cannot, like mechanical Turk workers do, select kind of only the task they like. And then the tasks that no one likes, they have to be, priced higher, and then finally someone will like them because maybe they pay a lot. Right? So there's much better, if you have a shorter engagement, there's a much better match between what you want to do and what you're actually doing. Moreover, very often you would have people overqualified for the positions that simply do not go higher because it takes such a tremendous amount of time to go up, to look for the other job. Or you have people bored with their positions. They would also like to change the job, but it's so much work that they will not do it. On eBay-style job market, you have a reputation system, like on eBay. You can hire people without trying to get to know them better because you have their acceptance rate, like on Mechanical Turk. In last 5 years, they dealt with 2,000 different tasks, and their acceptance rate, satisfaction rate was 98%. Moreover, people are reluctant to change jobs because people are risk aversive. So if I found my job, I'm sitting there, I'm not trying to change anything because maybe if I lose this job, I will not have anything better. On eBay kind of style market, like Mechanical Turk, you have a steady flow of tasks. You can see there are 200,087 tasks available that may be of your interest. Right? So you don't have this risk aversion because the tasks are lining up there. Of course, I presented it from the perspective of the employee, but the employer has exactly the same advantages. Why would you ask this guy to do something that he's not really so perfectly happy to do? There's someone else who would love to do it, who has a better solution for it, who maybe actually solved this problem already 10 times, and he would just copy-paste the solution and would be perfectly happy about it, right? Why would you force your existing software engineer to develop a piece of software that someone in India already developed many, many times over? You cannot grab the guy in India because you're kind of stuck with the guy in China or wherever else, or in Sweden. Higher motivation. Again, custom choice of tasks give you better person, job match, and higher motivation. Instant feedback to market changes. I can see what tasks are lining up. I can see how much they pay. If there is a part of the industry that now requires workers, requires more labor, they will have to offer higher prices. They will have an immediate, instant flow of employees in that direction. Also, more trust. I think that trust is actually a main issue now on the job market, right? You can nicely and easily test the qualifications of the individual, but you don't know how this individual will behave at work, whether he will actually use those qualifications. Moreover, if you hire a person, this person knows that he can allow himself to behave unreliably. Why? Because if he does it, you will lay him off. Like Tesco can lose one customer. He can lose you because there are so many other companies that he can look for jobs. And he doesn't necessarily have to, say, okay, those guys will give me a reference. He can say, okay, other guys will give me a reference, and maybe kind of even remove this fact from his CV. In the market, when you have a perfect access to information, this will be much more difficult. Of course, you cannot force people to keep accounts with negative comments on them. Of course, it's the same with the sellers on the eBay market. If the seller has his reputation destroyed, he will simply start a new account, but he starts from scratch. It's why he values his reputation so highly. Moreover, increased mobility. I mentioned it before, you can have people jumping from one task to the other much faster. It also decreases unemployment. People go up as soon as they can go up and take more difficult tasks. They are not stuck blocking entry for new graduates or new students who would like to enter the job market. And of course, better information also allows you to better manage your career and make better career choices. And then, back to assessment. Because if you've seen a second before, well, actually 5 minutes before, there were 287,000 potential tasks waiting for Mechanical Turkers on Amazon Mechanical Turk. And this is a very small job market, very, very small. And it's already quite impossible, being a Mechanical Turker, to find a best task for yourself, because there's so many of them. So the importance of matching between a person and a job, matching in a psychological way, looking at the personality of the person, looking at the motivation of the person, looking at the life goals of the person, the importance here grows tremendously, right? Because we have to do it on much larger scale. Moreover, there is of course a problem of qualification. If you hire a person and you keep him in your company for years and years and years, you actually don't even have to check his qualifications. You can assume that he has qualifications because he has done this task many times before, or he attended this and that training, right? We know that the guy is qualified. In the eBay style job market, you don't have the benefit of this information. The person that comes to you is a complete stranger. He will come do something for you and then go. And I try to convince you that this approach is actually more advantageous than the approach that we have now. But it also means that you will need to have a very powerful and very efficient way of testing the qualifications of the people that you are going to hire. You don't want someone who does know nothing about software engineering to start writing pieces of software for your product. Okay, so back to assessment, and let me now tell you about some enablers, disruptors, and key change factors that I believe will be affecting assessment markets now in the future. So this is how assessment looked yesterday. And it's a US Army alpha test, one of the first widely used ability tests. You can see those guys, they keep their hands in the air. And there is a big boss here who also keeps his hand up. And then when the boss says, okay, you can go, they would be allowed to write. And then I'm not sure if someone was shooting with the pistol, was just shouting at them. You have to put your hand up again and stop writing. This was an ability test using to choose soldiers that will be most successful at killing. Intelligence is a very good predicting at how good you are at killing other people. Okay, so how does it look now? It looks, I hope that in your organizations it looks much more like that at the moment. Why? Simply because if you're doing it in this way, you're doing it in the wrong way. It gives you a bit of information, but it doesn't give you as much information as the computerized approach can give you. And in a way, if you think about your company's future, and if you think about careers of the people, using methods that are not state-of-the-art and using methods that are not offering you maximum accuracy is just simply wrong. It's immoral even, because the decisions you will make will affect the future's careers of the individuals, and it's also affecting the well-being of your society. So if you're doing it wrong, you are immoral. It's like being a corrupt policeman. If you still use pen and paper tests, you're like a corrupt policeman, I'm sorry to say, or a corrupt politician. So I hope I didn't offend too many people, but and no worries, most of the world is still doing that. I just want to stress the importance of adapting new technologies. And the technology that is probably the most important at the moment, and the technology that is a must-have, I can discuss it with anyone, but no one yet was able to convince me that it is not true, is computerized adaptive testing. It is just goodness. If you don't use it, you are wrong, because you're losing information, you're losing people's time, you're frustrating them, and so on. For those who don't know, computerized adaptive testing is simply a testing approach. Of course, it happens on the computer. Of course, there is advanced item response theory-based scoring mechanism behind that increases the accuracy significantly. But the rule is very simple. So basically, when you get your participant, you try to learn about the participant from the first question and adjust the test in such a way that each next question you're asking is most informative, right? So if you got the question right, I try to calculate where your score could be, whether it's IQ, personality, satisfaction with life, or whatnot, and I try to ask the next question that is maximizing the information that I'm getting. This technology nowadays is as simple, if not simpler, to apply than a classical test theory, simply adding up points. It's also simply much more valid. Let me talk quickly about advantages. Shorter and more accurate tests. You can get the same accuracy with half the length of the test. And you can also avoid frustration. You don't have to show easy items to people who are high on the trade and difficult items to people who are low on the trade, right? So it's not only, of course, makes a lot of sense because it allows you to make shorter tests. You're getting more information in a shorter time. Asking an easy question to a professor is just waste of your time and professor's time, right? But it also frustrates people. Think about, well, let's keep employees for now. Think about kids at school. If you have a kid at school that is just poor at maths, and you give him a test that is non-adaptive, he will get 90% of questions wrong. He will go home and decide, I will never study maths again. And the same actually happens with your employees. If you give him an adaptive test, he will get 50% or 60% or 70%, because he can adjust that, questions right. His score will still be low, but his feeling of empowerment after he went home will be completely different. Just for this purpose, you should completely forget about traditional linear pen and paper tests, because they put people down unnecessarily. Moreover, computerized adaptive testing can help you to detect immediately and react to inattention and cheating. It allows you to develop tests more cheaply, and of course it provides the security for the test. Again, if you have entrance exams, well, you don't call it that way on a job market. If you kind of hire people and you have this exam to filter out those guys that you don't like, or have ability that is too low, or have personality that is not matching. Some of those people will inevitably cheat. There are people who are full-time going to GRE tests. I hope you know about GRE examination, Graduate Records Examination, a very big test in the United States, adaptive, IRT-based, and they cannot do it the other way around, because it's so high stake that there are people who have full-time jobs of going to those tests with fake IDs, taking the test, trying to memorize as many questions as possible, and then selling them to people, right? And it happens not only in high-stake GRE tests, it also happens in the personality tests. Because at the moment, I will speak a bit more about it later. Because at the moment, people treat the test as an enemy, as something that is used against them, that you guys, you evil people, are using against those poor people that are trying to get a job or get into the school or get into the whatever else, career management program. Because they believe you're using the test against them, they treat it as a game where they should be cheating you. And some of them will go online and check the correct responses, right? And you don't want to test the ability of people to go online and check the responses. You want to test the IQ of people, or you want to test their personality, and so on and so on. Otherwise, you may end up hiring very wrong guys, which is wrong for those guys because they will get hired and they will get laid off, or they will be severely unhappy. And it's not maybe so widespread in the Swedish culture, but if you go to countries like China, for instance, it's in the Chinese culture that a test is something you have to excel at. If it's a personality test, I have to excel at the personality test. Man, you cannot excel at the personality test because it just shows you who you are. No, 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 no. If I want to work at PricewaterhouseCoopers, I have to have scores like that, and there are whole websites telling you how you should score on your test if you want to work for this company. And they will train for months, and they will go for courses how to solve the given test to be hired in the company. How stupid? Well, I understand those guys and their motivations, but also how stupid is that? It's like making them unhappy at the end of the day. Maybe their personality was completely not in the right direction. They will not be happy at this job. They should be doing something else. Moreover, if you hire those guys, you are not hiring other people that deserve the place, that could do a good job for you. So again, it's immoral. If you use computerized adaptive testing, doing this is much more difficult. Raven matrices, 60 items. Takes me 5 minutes to find correct solutions on the web. Adaptive IQ test that uses automated item generations, like Qt, the test that Qt can deliver to you, can have item banks that has thousands of questions. It's simply impossible to memorize all those solutions, not to mention it's impossible to kind of steal all of those questions and post them online. CAT is the future. And also, of course, you can nicely change the purpose of the test. If you want to screen, you just tell your CAT algorithm, I just want to screen those people. If you want to have a in-depth knowledge about the level, you tell the CAT system, hey, I want to know as much about those people as possible, and CAT algorithm will automatically adapt. So please invest some time and invest some attention into switching, if you haven't yet done so, into new technologies. And do it quickly, because tomorrow it might be that we'll be testing using mobile technologies. Linear tests, completely impractical here, and pen and paper. And I have some nice stats here. 85% of the world's population will be covered by high-speed mobile internet in 2017. If you go to countries like India or China, those guys, they have like 3 or 4 cell phones in their pockets. And in each cell phones, they have 2 SIM cards. I actually brought one cell phone from China, and it's super convenient because there's 2 SIM cards, so I can take benefits of it as well in Europe. Not so widespread in Europe. We don't use mobile technologies as much as they use them on emerging markets. And because those markets will provide you with a lot of new entrants into a job market, you probably want to use mobile technologies. You want to be mobile enabled to be able to test those guys efficiently. Not to mention that the population in Sweden, I've noticed also everyone is glued to their screens. And I believe they do not play chess, but check their Facebook accounts, and they do it on the go. So it might be a very nice, cheap, and efficient way to reach the people. Not to mention that also there is so-called I forgot the word now. I said so-called, and now I'm lame because I forgot the word. It's environmental validity. Yeah, am I right? No, you don't. So basically, this is a factor that basically tells you that if you go and test someone in the lab, this seems very unnatural to the person. And naturally, in an unnatural situation, the behavior of the individual will change. If you let people take a test in their pajamas in front of the computer, some people say, oh, you cannot do it, this is outrageous. How the hell people can take my very serious test in their pajamas in front of the computer? They should, because they feel much better. You will have a much more, your picture of the person will be much closer to the natural, to the real one, than your picture of the person that is stressed, dressed in a suit, and sitting in a lab and sweating with all those scary people, psychologists walking around. His behavior will change, and there's a lot of scientific proof for that. There are many research papers that show you that the profile that you establish in this way is very often just wrong. So using mobiles can give you more of environmental validity, and I hope that I'm not making this term up. Okay, some people say paper, but how? Like psychologists, they love paper. I even had a discussion today about it. And they do, and the testing companies will say, no, but you know, Raven matrices were on pen and paper for so many years, and like our customers would never accept this shiny computer. How can you take it to like patient's bed in the hospital? Of course you can. Of course you can. You can take a piece of paper like that. This is a computer screen, a touch-enabled computer screen. You can touch it with the finger, but if you really have to, you can also touch it with the pen. If you cannot really touch it with the finger. And you can solve a test adaptively on a device like that. Not to mention 3 months battery life, global internet access for free, amazing testing device. Actually, we built some tests for Kindle at the moment, and people just love them because it looks like paper, feels like paper, and the battery lasts for 3 months. And you can take the adaptive online test in any country in the world because just internet works everywhere, and you don't have to pay $1 for connection. Okay, but maybe tomorrow we'll switch to testing that looks much more like that. I wanted to put my picture here with the similar device, but I don't look as handsome as this guy. But those devices were kind of a story of the future 2 or 3 years ago. Now I came back from Beijing. I was at one of the 30 universities in Beijing. It's a huge educational market. There was a psychology department here, and there were like stacks of boxes in the corridor. And I'm a very nosy person. I like to look into things like that. And I was walking on this corridor. I was teaching, and I just opened one of the boxes. And the boxes was fully packed with the devices like that. They're produced in China, and apparently they are not very expensive. They cost a few dozens dollars for a device like that connects by the USB to the computer and provides you with a very nice imaging what's happening in the brain. So we're not yet there. We don't yet know how to predict your future behavior, how to assess your intelligence, how to assess your personality using devices like that. But we are getting there, and we'll be there pretty soon. Good news, if you have an adaptive test, if you made your company computerized adaptive testing enabled, switching from this to this is very simple, right? Instead of asking a question, I can show something on a screen and say, now think about it while you're wearing this scary helmet, right? And the kind of a scoring mechanism, model behind it, IRT technology, it will all work. It's not a huge change. You can also mix the approaches. If you use pen and paper, simple approach, or just a straightforward pen and paper copy on the computer, to change to this approach will be a huge revolution. You will spend a lot of time and will have to pay a lot of money to catch up. But maybe, this is my next slide, this is my next slide story, and this is also actually a lot of my research. Maybe in the future you would not actually have to ask any questions or kind of show something on a screen and scan your brain. Maybe you could just use those friendly machines here to look at how people behave in the real everyday lives to try to figure who they are, what qualifications they have, and how they're going to perform. And I do a lot of research on Facebook, not because Facebook is the only big data environment, or it's not because Facebook is the well, actually, Facebook is the place where people spend a lot of time. But people also spend a lot of time in other places, like on Google. They search for stuff. They spend a lot of time using their Visa cards. And each transaction with a Visa card is leaving a track online about where you were, what you've bought, and so on. The same about your cell phone. So all of those records of behaviors might be used in assessment. And let me talk a bit more about it. So how do we assess today? We take individuals' behavior or performance, and we take a little sample of it by means of applying a questionnaire or a test. And please note that when I ask you to fill a questionnaire, I'm observing your behavior in a very specific context, filling a questionnaire context, right? So it's still just observation of a fraction of your behavior. Very artificial one, right? It's not your everyday behavior to fill the questionnaire. It's a very artificial bit of your behavior. And then, of course, when you use a test, you have all of those negative aspects of testing that you guys probably are well aware of, and you spend a lot of time at work fighting those. You have cheating, you have cognitive biases, you have misrepresentation. People try to appear better or worse when they take many tests. You have tiredness, stress, you have the fact that the situation is very artificial. And then what you do with the result of the test or the questionnaire? You take it and you estimate some traits, some low dimensionality traits, right? People are pretty complicated animals. And then what we do with them, we reduce them to their IQ, to 5 personality traits, and maybe few additional dimensions. And why do we do it? We do it because we want to predict the future behavior, future performance. Like how good of an employee this guy will be, how successful he will be at selling stuff or writing software or whatnot. You must admit that it's kind of a very complicated cycle here. And there is a lot of places in which we are losing information. We are losing information here because the responses to the test are made in an artificial situation. It's a small fraction of person's behavior observed in an artificial environment. We are losing a lot of information here. We had a personality questionnaire, neo-PR, 300 questions. We reduce it to few scales. All this information is contained there is reduced to few scales. Why? Because our computers here, they do not work well with problems of high dimensionality. If I want to describe a person to you, and I will describe this person using 150 dimensions, you will get lost after 5 or 6. You just cannot process so much information at once. It's not how our brains operate. But, surprise, surprise, computers can do it. So why not take the records of individuals' behavior, not while filling the questionnaire, an actual behavior, what you do at home, what you do at work, what you do online, what you do on Facebook, what you do on LinkedIn, what essays have you written, what status updates you put online, and so on, and put a machine brain to it, not to estimate few artificial traits, openness, intelligence, and so on. Because this, at the end of the day, is not why you are testing. You're not really interested in this guy's personality. You don't care. You care about how this guy will behave at work in the future, or how to help this guy, or how to give him a relationship counseling, or how to help him to plan his career. And you use personality just as some kind of a simplified picture of how this person might behave in the future. Computers, and I will show you in a second how successful computers are, can skip this stage because they very nicely work with 150 or 1,500 dimensions. They have no problem with that. They can predict behavior based on the minute patterns that are completely not visible for human beings. Moreover, even those little computer brains that learn very slowly comparing with human brains, and are very limited in many ways. They don't have a benefit of emotion, but they also have an advantage of not having emotions and not just simply liking this candidate and whatever his IQ is, I want to hire him because I like him and I don't know why. Those computer brains, they can also learn from each other very easily. Your experience is limited. You will only learn as much as you can learn in your lifetime and from the people you are meeting. If I would ask you, for those who are like doing job interviews, if I would ask you, now go and hire someone from China, you'll quite likely fail miserably. Because you know a lot about Swedish people, you know a lot about European people, but you don't know much about Chinese people. So their behavior, what they say in the interview, your interpretation of it won't be as valid as if you would have spent lifetime hiring Chinese people. Computers have an advantage of very easily sharing and exchanging information, and they can build a model that describes Chinese people from a given village and Swedish people from a given vicinity in Stockholm, and have a separate model for them from the people from Berlin and so on, and go to kind of a resolution and amount of data they work with, completely unachievable for human beings. Okay, but let's now talk about sources of data and places where you can collect this big data describing human behaviors. So I already mentioned online activities, but also games online. Games, I believe, will be a very important part of psychometrics in the future, because it's like an ongoing simulation of the real life. You can give people tasks that they're unlikely to encounter in their daily lives, stressful situation, moral choices, teamwork examples, and so on, and see how they behave. And again, I'm not so old, but when I started playing games, they were like, you know, they didn't really look like anything real. Still, kids' imagination was making this artificial ping pong on a screen look very exciting, very real, and very engaging. Not sure if you've seen a computer game recently. I don't have much time for playing computer games, but they look very real. Like if someone walks through the field of grass, actually you can see that each piece of grass waving, and each piece of grass is different. It's just uncannily real. So, and because we make this situation more and more real, people can interact in those games with other players. They're also real people, just avatars of them. Then the hypothesis can be made, and there is a lot of research proving this point, that their behavior online will be a mirror of their behavior in the real life. So by observing this behavior, you can very nicely figure out how they'll behave at work. Moreover, the point here is that you don't have to invite them to the lab to play a game. Why would you do that? This is an artificial situation. Of course they will behave differently, and they will be very team-working individuals, never kill anyone, never cheated anyone online, and so on. Observe the gaming behavior in the last 10 years, just looking at the records of the games, World of Warcraft or whatever they played with. Sounds very unethical, sounds very scary, observing someone's games or someone's Facebook profile. I'll come back to it. Consume content, music you listen to, books you read. I can easily tell you when you invited me for the interview, oh, I read, you know, Great Gatsby every evening, you know, and Bible lies next to my bed. Those lies are very easy to make. But today we read books on Kindles, we read books on our cell phones. You can actually see whether this person read a book, right? It's one thing to put a Bible next to your bed. I'm not sure if you would hire someone who put the Bible next to don't misunderstand me, on his bed. But then the other thing is to actually see if the guy just read it page by page and spent a reliable amount of time on every page, and maybe made some comments, maybe selected some quotes. And then you can go back, since he actually started reading, and check everything he read. Misrepresentation becomes much more difficult. And you can learn so much more from it, because you see which books he skipped, which fragments he read quickly, which books he was coming back to a lot. What does it mean? I don't know. And I don't think that any of us would know how to interpret this kind of data. How to interpret that you read this book or the other book. How to interpret that you lingered a bit longer on a given page. Impossible to figure out. Maybe if you read this book yourself and it's a very popular book in your family, then say, okay, because my family is like that, if this guy read this book, he must be similar to us. It's a very good reasoning, very nice stereotype. Stereotypes are very useful. But if you look at the variety of books and content, websites, blogs, news websites, and so on that people can see on watch online or consume on the devices, it's impossible to interpret this data. And now, surprise, surprise, computers can do it very easily because they can observe millions of people usually doing the same thing, check how those people performed later in the task at school, how well they write their essays, and try to figure out how well this person will perform. A little digression here. It turns out that computers now are much more reliably scoring essays than human raters. Now think about literature. Literature, poetry, it's such a complicated subject. And you then ask a computer, can you please give me a grade for this student that wrote this essay? This computer knows nothing about poetry. Moreover, if you actually look at the method this computer is using, this computer knows nothing about how the essay should be actually written. It doesn't know what the person wrote. The computer cannot interpret an essay about poetry. He will not have a mental, I don't know if I should call it mental, RAM or CPU picture of poetry or literature. But what computer does, it looks at some minute patterns. What words person were using? How long was the sentence? Was the comma placed here or there? Was this word close to the other word? So computer looks at patterns that look very stupid to us human beings. How could you possibly grade a poetry essay just looking at the construction of the sentence? It doesn't tell you anything about what the person is actually writing about. And it turns out that computers are more reliably scoring essays than human raters. And I hope you know about reliability. You can very nicely check it. You can take 10 humans, let them score the essay, and then you will see that those human scores will be spread. Some people will give a high score, some people go a low score. This is a very unreliable scoring, right? And then you take a computer, and the computer will be exactly in the middle. Scary, but true. And maybe in 10 years, computers actually will be able to understand poetry better. OK, so what can you do with this tremendous amount of data? And I already mentioned you can read the essays, you can observe the behavior, you can wear your cell phone, and your cell phone is an amazing digital recorder of what you do. It has a GPS tracker, it knows where you are, it can listen to your voice. You can tell a lot about a person from his or her voice. You can track emotions. You can see how emotions change in certain situations. You can check whom the person is meeting, right? Because you will see that this cell phone now came very close to the other cell phone, and they're kind of traveling together through the space. Maybe someone went for a walk with a friend, right? So there's also a lot of secondary data. So you don't only read emails of the person, but you can also infer a lot. Like you have two pieces of information, one person, the other person walking together. Hey, maybe they know each other, maybe they actually talk with each other. Hey, let's analyze the tone of the voice. Then we can figure out what emotions are between those people. Amount of data, amount of reasoning is completely beyond humans. Computers easily can analyze it. By the way, MI5 in UK is doing exactly that. They have the map of all the people moving around. Well, actually not people, cell phones. They have a map of all the cell phones moving around UK. And then they have flagged some people who are like some cell phones who are suspicious. And then if you happen to be close to this cell phone too often, they will also flag you. So there's a kind of a propagation of being flagged. So then if you happen to travel to work on the same bus with a guy that is suspicious, then you also become suspicious, but then your wife becomes suspicious, and your kids become suspicious. Well, it's a very spooky, but also successful screening method that, well, in England, I hope it's not used against the best interest of people, but then think Iran. And I'm also running again in direction of ethics, but let's leave it for later. Advantages, actual and not self-reported behavior. If you can behave consistently in a given way for years and years and years, maybe it's just you, right? We all put masks on our faces all the time, right? It's a very difficult question, who am I? Who am I really, right? We change and adjust our behavior. But it's very easy to tremendously change my behavior only for the sake of the interview with my prospect employer. It's very difficult to change my behavior on Facebook for last 4 years, or in an online game for last 10 years, and so on. It's And if you're able to do it for last 10 years in your gaming environment, I hire you anyway, because I hope you will continue doing the same thing at work. Potentially reaching far into the past, you can also see how the person evolves and whether he's not making stuff up. Dynamically updatable models. You develop Big Five. There are some tests. There are actually some tests. I will not mention names. There are some tests still in use that were developed 50 years ago. And the scoring methods didn't change. The interpretation of the results didn't change. The feedback didn't change. People 50 years ago were completely different. They understood sentences in a different way. The culture was different. The meaning of the question was different. Good example, we don't have to actually go back. Let's see differences between countries. An extroverted girl in UK behaves very differently from an extroverted girl in Malaysia. They're both same extroverts. They behave in a very different way. You cannot use the same test. Exactly the same thing with time. You cannot use the same test today as you used 50 years ago. It simply will not work. It won't be valid. The advantage of analysis like that is that they update automatically. They observe behavior, they train themselves, they make themselves better all the time, which means that they're getting better, but they also follow what's happening in the population. And of course, we are skipping the level of traits. We don't have to think about personality, we don't have to think about IQ, we can actually go and predict actual behavior. And now let me give you some examples of predictions that can be done with big data. This was done using Facebook likes, so I just asked 7.5 million people to access their Facebook profiles and give me the likes, and 40% of them said, yeah, why not, and gave me access. This, of course, completely anonymous, but those are the results. The very similar results can be achieved using browsing logs. And please note, I'm using a very limited scope of data here. I'm just using likes from Facebook. I'm not using your status updates. I'm not using your places. I'm not using your web browsing history and so on. I'm just using one little piece of information out of so many. And I'm using relatively simple models, to be honest. It's not also science fiction what's happening here. Gender, very easy, 93% accuracy. By the way, this number means if you give me a male and a female, and you ask computer to figure out which one is which one, this will be the accuracy. Gender, well, actually pretty obvious. Girls and guys, they behave in a very different way, so it's easy to distinguish between behaviors. But look, gay and lesbian, 88% for gay. Political views, 85% accuracy. Race, 95% accuracy. But then I tried to predict some kind of less or more elusive things like drug use, drinks alcohol, smokes cigarettes. I didn't have data about their performance at work. I didn't have data whether they steal printer paper or not. I didn't have data whether they are good at selling stuff or not. So I couldn't predict that. But I had many other pieces of information. And actually, I'm missing one thing here, which is basically, so someone said, oh, no, actually, I'm not missing it. So someone said, OK, single or relationship, this relates to a given person. Actually, as you can see, the accuracy is relatively low. And I have a hypothesis why it is relatively low comparing with your race, for instance. It is because single versus in relationship, it's not fixed. It's not written in stone. It changes. Whereas Facebook likes, they accrue over a long time. So what is ignored here completely, it's temporal distribution of the signal. I'm just taking your whole Facebook likes. I don't care where you like the thing, and I'm analyzing it. It's a very simple approach. It's not using, the fraction, even the smallest fraction of what's potentially available now in terms of technology. Still, you can predict a lot. And someone joked and said, OK, this is easy because this relates to an individual. Try to predict something that doesn't really relate to this individual, relates to someone else. And I said, OK, I know whether this guy's parents were divorced at 21 or not, because there was one questionnaire when I was asking about it. And look, the accuracy is kind of small, but you can still figure out, simply by looking at Facebook likes, whether your parents were divorced when you are 21 or not. Some linear traits. Personality. You have reliability of the actual personality questionnaire here in red. So this is kind of the accuracy of the personality questionnaire. This is accuracy of my Facebook prediction. Usually around the half of the accuracy of the prediction of the personality questionnaire in terms of openness, actually very close to the accuracy of the real questionnaire. And now, one little remark here. Who said that when I measure personality, I measure actually something that has sense, that makes sense? Maybe computer is not very good at predicting personality because it's such a virtual concept based on a made-up, human-made questionnaire that kind of predicting this stuff is very difficult. And the best proof for that, take a personality questionnaire, big 5 personality questionnaire that is said to be a best descriptor, best simplification of human behavior, describing the person in its totality, allowing to predict future behavior. You hire people based on their big 5 scores. Take this and try to predict whether they use drugs, alcohol, smoke cigarettes. Try to predict some other traits of themselves. You will be doing very, very badly. The accuracy will be much below anything you can achieve simply based on actual levels of behavior. Are you guys spooked a bit about this? That you can take your Facebook, that Facebook knows whether you're gay or not? Even with you don't explicitly say it. Because of course, if you join like, you know, I love being gay, like on Facebook, then okay, it's not, you know, like I'm not an Einstein to figure out that you are gay. But the thing is that only, I guess, well, only like, this is a sample here of 200,000 people here. Only like 1,000 or less than that, like 700 of those guys actually liked being gay officially. Most of them didn't actually like it. They liked certain music, they liked certain books, they liked this and that. And just looking at those little minute patterns allows me and Facebook and anyone else, think your internet service provider, think your government, think your web browser, which also records everything you do. All of those people know whether you're gay or not, and what's your IQ, and what's your openness, and so on. I'll come back to ethics slightly later, because now I'll use my last 10 minutes, 5 minutes.
No, it's okay. Go on.
10 minutes. Okay, to what I believe has to change. So I already mentioned obsolete methods. It has to change. It's simply immoral if you use obsolete methods. And I can prove you that point if you have any doubts. What will you tell your kids? Like, I was using a pen and paper test. They'll say, grandma, or like grandchildren, grandma, how could you? Unsustainable frequency. Look, as now people are changing their jobs every few years. They apply to hundreds of places. If the trend will continue in the direction I indicated in the beginning of this seminar, and people will be changing jobs much more frequently, you cannot sustain the model in which each time they want to look for the job, you test their personality, test the IQ, test this, test that, and so on. It already costs a lot of money and a lot of time. You cannot maintain that. You cannot sustain it into the future. You have to go in the direction of what's happening in education, where you got your certificate that you know how to do marketing, that you got high GRE score, that you know English, and you use this number, these certificates, then to apply for jobs, and they do not really have to test it again, right? You have to go in this direction because it's kind of unsustainable what's happening at the moment. It's very good for business on the surface, I would say, because you can sell many, many tests. But maybe there is a better business in testing someone once and then just selling his results. The tests are often, I know that this is not true, but this is what people will tell you. People will tell you the tests are used against me. Why? Because it still happens that you test a person and you will not give him feedback. Well, you give him feedback. We are very glad you came for the interview, but you're not accepted. This is come on, this is just proving the point that the test is a game that the person has to win. It's not showing the person that the test is person's ally, that you seriously just want to check if the person matches the job to maximize his satisfaction and your company's satisfaction. You have to give feedback to people. I would say you should go even further. You should say, in the past, when you were taking the test, you had to have a psychologist that were like adding up points and giving you your score. Today, computer can do it. So why wouldn't you let your candidates take the test, see the results, and then decide whether they want to share the results with you? It's so much safer for them, right? They see the results, they see the feedback. Computer can give them perfect feedback. The computer can even explain why they should not take this job, even if they're offered. Because, man, you're not a natural-born software engineer. You will die with those geeks there in this room. You should do other things, right? If you want, go and try, but my advice is don't do it. If the person owns the results and owns the feedback, then he can come to you and say, okay, this is my feedback, this is my results, do you want to hire me? Right? Completely different approach, also much more ethical approach. Because there are huge problems, and like with storing the results, who has access to those results, why should you be allowed actually to learn certain things about individuals and so on. Not to mention that if we talk about this spooky kind of testing using your Facebook profile or your cell phone records or whatnot, this, in my opinion, is unsurmountable ethical problem unless you give a full ownership of the results and feedback to the individual. So the actual assessment is done on my cell phone locally. The data is not stored anywhere on the server. And I can decide whether I want to reveal these results and this data to my employee, to my school, or whoever. Actually, I think that it's also affecting business. I know that it's slightly outside of the scope of this meeting, but nowadays, when you have data online, it's on Facebook, right? It's on Google. Everything we do is stored somewhere centrally. This is, again, unsustainable because people will realize that by the fact that this data is there, everyone knows everything about them, the things that they wouldn't like them to know. Government knows things about them. So I think there will be pressure from the customer side, but also from the policymaker side, and it's already happening, like with Google Street View and so on, but I think it's not yet in the right direction, on the companies and technologies that are being developed that will ascertain that any data I'm producing, my status updates, my pictures, my whatnot, is stored on my computer. And Facebook is just allowing other friends to access it, but not through Facebook servers, like directly in the peer-to-peer mode. So Facebook can also have clean hands, because now I can go to Facebook and say, Facebook, how dare you knowing if I'm homosexual or not? But Facebook would be able to say, you know what, we don't know it because we don't store any data about you. Everything is stored on your computer. The same, in a way, relates to testing business. If testing business will go in the right direction of testing more accurately, using more data than just questionnaires, you will have to think about how to circumvent the ethical problem. The good solution, the solution I think it's beautiful and simple and empowering people, is to give them ownership of the data, which hopefully will also mean that they will start believing that the test is not used against them, but it's for their own benefit. Yeah, I guess I covered this slide. Yeah, and that's it for today. Thank you guys for your attention, and I hope you will have many questions during the question session.
So have a seat for now.
Thank you.
We'll bring you up for questions in a few minutes. So, ja, absolut. So, thanks to Michal for these inspiring presentations from the frontiers of psychological research. I'll switch over to Swedish for a few minutes and then we'll open up for questions. Så för oss som arbetar med test och rekrytering så är det här förstås otroligt spännande. Och den här utvecklingen kretsar kring de områden, de teman som vi ser som nycklar så att säga idag. Och det handlar ju om teknik, psykologi och utveckling då. Och vad menar vi på KUT när vi pratar om det här? Ja, teknik då. När vi pratar om teknik så ser vi att det är en självklarhet för många av de organisationer som vi arbetar med idag att test finns på internet till exempel. Det är en självklarhet. Och det är inte så ofta som man efterfrågar egentligen papper och penna-varianter utan man vill testa på internet då. Och det finns många fördelar med att testa på internet och en uppenbar sån är ju då förstås att det går att testa betydligt tidigare i processen och kanske på ett mer automatiskt sätt än vad man gjort tidigare. Många gånger ser man ju test som en automatisk förlängning av till exempel om man uppfyller ett par skallkrav så går man då vidare till ett psykologiskt test då. Och det är inte så att man längre bara använder test när det gäller på enstaka slutkandidater utan man använder test verkligen som ett screeningverktyg då. Och det vet jag att det är många av er här som gör idag då. Och det här var ju faktiskt inte möjligt innan vi hade då test på internet. Och en nackdel är ju då också som Michal var inne på i sin presentation är att kontrollen över testsituationen minskar som potentiellt kan skada då kvaliteten i testerna eller alltså hur mycket man kan lita på själva testresultatet då. Det finns ett risk att testfrågor exponeras i för hög grad, att frågor börjar cirkulera, att kandidater gör skärmdumpar, frågor sprids via olika forum och så vidare. Och när vi gör olika undersökningar för att se vem som besöker vår hemsida så ser vi att det är inte våra kunder som besöker vår hemsida i så stor utsträckning och det är inte våra konkurrenter som besöker vår hemsida i så stor utsträckning utan den förkrossande majoriteten är kandidater då, som vi får reda på mer om de här testerna som de skickas ut då, i olika rekryteringsprocesser. Så det är därifrån så att säga de allra flesta besöken kommer. Och det sättet som vi arbetar med det här det är ju då att vi försöker att ta fram olika typer av adaptiva, sådana intelligenta test som Michal beskrev då, som egentligen anpassar sig efter hur kandidaterna svarar. Så man presenterar en fråga och sen så beroende på vilken input som kandidaten ger så anpassar man då testet eller följande frågor. Så vi har inget test som går egentligen från punkt A till punkt B och att alla ser samma frågor. Utan vi har stora frågebanker då, där vi slumpar fram olika typer av frågor då, ur de här frågebankerna. Och i en del fall så är det till och med så att en del av de här frågorna administreras i realtid då, eller tas fram i runtime då, som vi säger då. Och när det gäller nästa bit här då med psykologi som vi pratar om så ja, det här är faktiskt en liten diskussion som vi har på vårt företag då, om psykologi är vår kärnverksamhet eller om det är faktiskt så att IT är vår kärnverksamhet. Och vi ser väl att vi är någonstans mitt emellan där, både när det gäller psykologi och teknik då. Så. Men vi ser det också som väldigt viktigt att vi har en hög psykologisk kompetens då på vårt företag i och med att många av de kunderna som vi träffar också blir mer och mer kunniga på det här området. Och vi har inte någon stor säljstyrka eller liknande som är anställd hos oss utan för oss är det viktigt att kunna matcha den kompetensen som finns hos våra kunder då, helt enkelt med att många av oss är då psykologer som jobbar på KUT då. Vi tror också att det är viktigt att våra produkter inte bara finns i relationen mellan oss och våra köpande kunder utan att de också granskas av en tredje part. Vi vill också att våra test ska användas i generell forskning. Jag vet att det finns ett par representanter för universitetet här idag och ni får jättegärna använda våra test i något av era forskningsprojekt. Det är vi bara glada för. Så. Och då när det gäller den sista delen då, utveckling, så när jag och Henrik träffade Achim Preuss, en av grundarna till KUT första gången var på en internationell testkonferens i Prag. Och då höll han en demonstration då av KUTs testsystem och vi fick titta in då i den här godisbutiken eller Kalles chokladfabrik tror jag att du kallar den för. Och det var ju förstås väldigt spännande. Och en del av de här testerna som vi tittade på såg ju också ut som traditionella psykologiska test eller så som vi var vana vid att se dem. Och en del var ganska annorlunda. Och när vi frågade då hur de arbetar med produktutveckling på KUT så svarade Achim sådär att produktutveckling, det är klart att vi arbetar med produktutveckling men det är inte så att vi kommer på våra idéer själva utan det är något som uppstår i mötet med våra kunder eller i en del fall så är det då kunderna som säger så här, det här vill vi testa, det här vill vi pröva. Och kunder ger input och vi arbetar med psykometri och med själva systemet. Då. Och det här är då en inställning eller ett förhållningssätt kan man säga till att arbeta i framkant eller att arbeta med utveckling som vi gärna vill fortsätta att förvalta då på den svenska marknaden. Så vi tänker inte sitta på kontoret och komma på lysande idéer utan vi vill träffa er och vi vill diskutera och vi vill lufta olika idéer då kring vad kan vi göra tillsammans. Vad skulle nästa steg kunna vara? Vad är det som ni vill så att säga, intresserade av att kartlägga eller mäta då i era rekryteringar? Kan vi göra någonting med sociala medier eller internet eller vad vet jag? Så låt oss diskutera saken, så det tycker vi ska vara väldigt roligt då. Så på vägen ut så besök vårt bord, prata med någon konsult, vi kommer också höra av oss så småningom. Besök också gärna våra samarbetspartners på vägen ut på Psykologifabriken och Genenga Progress då. Ja, så får vi inte glömma att så har vi vår kollega från Norge här idag också, Espen Skorstad. Och om ni är intresserade av att få ett signerat exemplar av Rätt person på rätt plats, som är förstås på väg att bli årets stora bästsäljare då i testbranschen, så finns det möjlighet att köpa den till ett lite rabatterat pris så, där ute och också få en signerat. Om ni vill vara ute i god tid med julklapparna menar jag då. Det var inte ett skämt där nu. Ja, okej. Så fundera på det här, vi kommer att höra av oss då. So, let's switch to English and open up for questions for Michal. I'm sure that there are some from the audience.
I guess the biggest question here would be the ethical considerations of big data analysis for job, what do we call it?
Employment.
I think the biggest problem would be the problem of consent. You said that one way to solve that would be to give the individual the complete ownership of his data. But in the future model that you showed us, I guess people would be kind of forced to leave their information to companies. I don't think that would actually be a choice to keep the data for yourself if everybody else is giving away their data like now. And in the future, then would there really be a choice? You know what I mean?
Well, it's a very good question. I keep asking the same question to myself and the others. And I do believe that there is a choice. So, because people, well, not everywhere, but the Western culture is very much focused on protecting privacy and making sure that certain things are only known to ourselves or the family, so we have a choice if we want to reveal certain issues or not. Like our IQ is not something that we should have sewn on our jackets, and probably would be a very bad society if this would ever happen. It's why I believe that once people realize that the books they read on Kindle or the stuff they do on Facebook or the searches on Google are actually just another kind of psychometric test that allows you to establish their IQ, then there will be a huge pressure on changing the technology in such a way that no one but me or you has this data, right? You can as well run Google searches on your computer and kind of exchange them. I don't know how to do it technologically, but I believe there is a way of kind of exchanging the information with the centralized Google server without necessarily revealing that it's me searching for something or you searching for something. Right? I am not like to go into technological issues how to do it, but we definitely should go in this direction. And I have there's actually an example in Facebook sphere. There is this platform called Diaspora, and Diaspora is basically Facebook just without any data stored centrally. It's a peer-to-peer Facebook, and all the data is stored locally on people's computers. And I agree and understand that in the workplace you can actually observe everything that person is doing because he's on the web on your computer network. Emails that he is writing go through your email server and so on. So you actually see those pieces of information. So it's kind of unavoidable here, or it's much more difficult to avoid the situation situation in which you do have access to this data. But I think that here you could have a very nice contract with your employee and say, look, we have access to this data, but we seriously do not look at it. It doesn't mean that you cannot use this data, because you can still have mechanisms trying to figure out certain things, like changing motivation or changing mood of your employee, looking at his or her behavior. As long as the person will see the results and be able, given a choice to share them with you or not. And I will give you a very simple example. There are some companies have introduced those like blocks on Facebook. Like you cannot use Facebook at work. Stupidest thing ever, because then a person takes his cell phone and uses Facebook on cell phone, so he's not even looking at the screen of your computer that you want him to look at. Not to mention that Facebook is now becoming a very important part of our communication with customers. Why? Allow a person to use Facebook and monitor it, but monitor it not in a spooky way, oh, I'm a big brother, I'm looking what you're doing on Facebook. Monitor it locally for him, and at the end of the day or end of the month, tell the employee, not, well, you will not see this, but the employee will see it. Hey mate, you're spending too much time on Facebook, kind of consider if everything is alright with your motivation. If you like, you can discuss it with, you know, your occupational psychologist that is at work. Sounds a bit like science fiction, and I see that, but if you create a culture in your company where people do work there not because they have to, but because they want to, and the future of the job market will very much, I believe, be based on the stuff you want to do. Think about this all open source software that is out there, like Linux. If you use Android phone, if you use internet actually, if you use Mac computer, all of this was enabled by work of hundreds of thousands of people who were writing pieces of software and donating, kind of contributing them to those open source environments. They were doing it without any boss looking behind their, you know, shoulders whether they use Facebook or not. Why? Because there was a very nice task person match. They could choose what they want to do. If your workplaces will go in this direction, the person will appreciate the feedback, will say, thank you for telling me I'm spending too much on Facebook, and thank you for giving me links to self-help pages, and thank you for inviting me to discuss it with the psychologist, because I really want to excel at work and not, you know, force work.
Great. So I have one question from us at Qt. Did you analyze your own Facebook profile? And hold on, I'll give you the microphone to record this.
I did actually, and it was very valid. So when you look at those reliabilities of personality profile, for instance, it is well, they were not so well. They were like half of the questionnaire reliability. But please know that we have there people in a sample there that like 2 or 3 things on Facebook at large. Like they didn't like more. I am kind of an average Facebook user. I probably have around 50 or 60 likes. And my profile was actually totally correct.
Thank you for that information.
You can, I'm not sure if you, actually I could show you the demo. The internet here is,
okay, that's okay.
no?
All right. I think we had a question on the left side here.
I have actually 2 concerns, and I'm thinking then about the judgments we are making based on that data or information we are collecting. And one of the concerns is related to what data is actually, or we consider relevant for the judgments we are making for the job performance, future job performance. You know. And the second, probably it's a little bit vulgar comparison I made, but think about only about literature. How do you make judgments, for example, if a person like to read Charles Dickens and Isaac Asimov, and compare to a person who reads only Isaac Asimov or only Charles Dickens? And this data leads to some type of judgments. You know, is that relevant for the job performance?
Thank you for that question. It's an amazing one, actually. And this is a very important point here. And I like that you said judgments. If you guys go to someone's Facebook profile and look at the picture, look at the likes, try to figure out who this person is, you are making judgments. And don't do it, because those judgments are very often invalid. Think about interviews. Interviews is why we use structured interviews at the moment, but they're still not there. Interviews are highly unreliable because there are many things that are influencing the interview that should not be influencing interview. And they are not allowing you to assess the person accurately. The same about looking at the Facebook profile. I actually had a student last year, and she wrote a dissertation about checking how picturing yourself on a Facebook profile in certain ways is related to your actual traits. And she looked at some issues that might be relevant to in terms of job seeking. So for instance, she looked whether you are posing on a picture with alcohol, or how large is your cleavage on the picture. And the assumption was that maybe, because if you ask employers, and she actually cited literature showing that employers were like, oh, if I see a person with alcohol on the picture, I would never hire him or her because she's totally inconscientious. She's not a good employee for my company. And she tried to verify those claims, check whether actually showing a huge cleavage on the picture or showing yourself with a beer really means that your personality is different. And she found that the only thing that differs is that those guys have high extroversion and marginally higher IQ, which shows how unfair are the judgments that potential employers may make. If you want to hire a person that sells stuff, an extrovert, a team leader, hire a person that has a beer on his picture and is half naked. Seriously, you will make a very good choice. And this is another actually point here in what you said, is that you should avoid making human judgments because you naturally are affected by stereotypes and about your limited knowledge about culture, how certain things relate to individual traits and so on. We have a lot of knowledge here, but it's not perfect, especially when we now have so much signal that we didn't have before. In the past, I wanted to say that people are perfect psychometric machines. Our machinery here to detect someone's personality or IQ was honed in throughout our evolution because it was crucial for our survival to quickly figure out whether this person is aggressive or not, whether this person is smart or not, whether this person will cheat me or not. But we were doing it in a completely different environment. We're meeting people in person, we're not nicely dressed, we didn't use perfumes, we did not go to schools, we didn't read books and so on. All of this signal was not present. It's why we're very good at judgments based on face-to-face interaction, first 5 seconds and so on. Those judgments are surprisingly accurate. But we didn't evolve to judge people based on Facebook. So don't do it. What you can do, you can ask computer to do it for you. Because computer is neutral. It will not judge, it will assess.
Yes, but your computer is the algorithm. So your computer needs to know what is good and what is wrong and what to choose. Because it's not doing it just by himself. He needs the algorithm.
Exactly. No, you don't. So what I was showing here, the stuff I was showing here, this was done using machine learning. In machine learning, we do not give computer an algorithm. We give computer the tools and say, now go and figure. Right? Like we give him statistical tools, we show him this is the data, let's say Facebook likes. Those are the outcome variables, like how good you're at work, whether your parents were divorced, what's your extroversion, and so on. We give him some tools and then say, now learn how to use those tools. We do not tell you that having a beer on the picture means you're extroverted or not. We don't do it because this is judgment. We say, figure it out on yourself. And computers will it work for a few seconds, or a few hours, or a few days, depending on the size of the model. And then we'll tell you, okay, now I know. And now you give the computer a new person that the computer never seen before, and computer will make an assessment. And it's a big point what you said. It's a big point to avoid interviews, avoid judging things just using your judgment. Use assessment, not judgment.
All right. I think we have room for one last question. Someone's itching. Go for it.
A lot of research shows that we think about what we are posting on Facebook, and then I mean, a valid source to make judgments or
judgments. It's not a valid source to make judgments.
I mean, is it true data, or if you know what I mean?
It's because, okay, if you want to hire people that are very highly kind of conscious on themselves and they control the environmental, okay, is there, I should ask this question. Sweden is a very open-minded country. Is there anyone in this room that was never drunk in their lives? Can you raise your hands? Anyone who never was drunk in your life? We have one person, two people, thank you. It's all right not to be drunk in your lives. I wouldn't raise my hand. I was drunk a few times in my life, so I'm sorry for that. If you would have Facebook when you were young, it's obvious that your drunken pictures will be on Facebook, even if you haven't put them there. One of your friendly friends would do it. If you tell me, okay, hire this person, I go on Facebook and I see his drunken picture, it's like, I don't want to hire this person, he has a drunken picture on Facebook. Come on! Everyone sooner or later will have drunken pictures on Facebook, and people who remove them are just people who are, you know, highly skilled on self-monitoring, political skills, you know, enhancing misrepresentation. If you want this chameleon kind of person in your company, he can be a good PR person, especially if you're tobacco industry. Hire this guy. But if you want, you know, normal people, honest people, just don't do it. If you use a computer is much more neutral because computer doesn't judge. It doesn't care whether drinking is perceived as good or bad in the society. Computer just tries to figure out what's the relationship between posting a picture with beer and your intelligence. And it will figure out that actually your intelligence is slightly above average, probably, if you do that. I don't know why. I haven't had any drunken pictures on Facebook. Maybe it says some bad things about me. And certainly no one is interested in the cleavage, but I have to work on it.